Hey everybody, let's go ahead and get started. I hope you're all having a great day so far. Mine's been pretty good. Nothing really noteworthy to talk about. Alright, let's switch over. Okay, so we're still working on the terrain mesh, and today specifically I want to finish up modifying in battle, which we almost got complete. Let's open up this. So I was going to have a tester object here. Then we just do something easy, like, I don't know, if we press a certain key, it will delete a specific, well, not delete, but change the terrain of one specific block. So let's go ahead and do that. And again, this will be very simple because it's just for debugging. Let's say get key down, or let's do get key up, I guess. The difference is get key down returns true the frame that a key starts being pressed, where get key up returns true on the frame that a key is released. So it's just personal preference what you want to use there. Let's do alpha 1, so the 1 key. Okay, so we need to get the battle, and then we'll need to fire that specific message right here. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. I want to, using the right namespace, and then message claim, oh, no type actually. Mod message, and again we'll just use the right namespace and start by inherit from my specific monobehavior class. I can use its special start, but it needs to be protected, and from here I can get these components without having to worry about claiming or enabling and disabling them when this object disposes. So first we need to call base start. Let's get component. So this should be a claim message actually. And the tag, get this copy from here. Okay, so what we'll do here is we'll get rid of a specific block. So no really easy way to do this. So first let's just get the index of the one I want. Equals X position. And I want to get rid of this top. This one, 333. And again, this is in Lua indexes, so I need to change it to 222 for C#. Okay, so that will give me the index of that hexagon. And then I'll change the terrain to 0, which is the empty. And then I just need to call that message. And that should do it. Actually, I don't think this class is created anywhere. So I actually need to go set that up. And there's kind of the weird thing where, again, these game logic classes aren't really supposed to use or know anything about these UX classes, but there's not really a good place to create these otherwise. So I guess we'll need to figure that out sometime in the future. Okay, so now if I press the 1 key, I'm hoping that this block here will disappear. Oh, well, you know what? I didn't add the test object here, so that's an important thing to do. Okay, yeah, that did work. So, oops, we got an error. That's weird. So let's look. Did the collision mesh update correctly? No, see there's still this empty thing up here. Oh, well we had this problem before where the collision mesh didn't update. How did I fix that actually? Okay, so I need to call this setup collider again. Okay, I think I should get rid of this realize map. Yeah, because it's kind of just hacky right now. I just put this at the end to have things get set up. I think that the terrain mesh should probably have a mesh updated function. But I guess there does need to be something that lets everything know when the map controller has started up. So maybe I'll leave this here. It's a little hacky, but regardless, I need another message here that the terrain mesh can take care of. Well, actually, no, I don't want the terrain mesh itself to deal with it. Yeah, it should be this class that does it. Or do I want that to happen because... Well, yeah, because I think the terrain should just do whatever it's told and not have any side effects. Probably the best idea. Yeah, maybe this class will just take care of any changes to it. Actually, really, does this modification need to be any different? Like, because I think this is the only class that would ever actually care that the collider mesh changes. But we might need to have... I'm trying to think if there's any other class that would want to know when the terrain mesh itself changes. That'd probably be good enough. I guess we'll just future-proof this and have it in case. I mean, there's no real overhead to having more messages. Oops, change. Okay, so let's just call this terrain mesh change. And that's a good question. I just this is like a UX only message. So I'm trying to think, should I guess really this shouldn't be exposed to the rest of the game. Okay. I guess it needs to be public. And I'm gonna need to create a new tag object, aren't I? Because this isn't the game logic. Probably a good idea. I can pretty much just steal this because it's gonna be almost exactly the same. Okay, and I think no, this doesn't need to be public actually. And okay, I needed to implement this. Oh, I kind of messed up with the nesting there. Okay, yeah, I was a little confused what was going on. So, again, this is just like a special object that pretty much names any component that we want to put in the component list. And again, the reason I'm making a new one, I mean, it is just kind of copying, but I want like anything that I put in this UX section of the game to just not be accessible to the rest of the game, just to try and keep away the or separate the game logic from the actual display. In general, it's just a good idea. So right now we'll just have map. I'm pretty sure we'll also need a lobby, and going by the other, our chess game, there's going to be a lot of messages having to do with the lobby. Although I wonder if they would be... I have a feeling that there's not going to be a whole lot of UX tags, because they're just messages that are like passed between the interface. But yeah, I don't want to like not have this, because I don't want things to get too confusing, so... So I just gotta change around some of these class names here. No, I don't need all these actually. Okay, and then I'll just need to create another interface or enumeration here. Oh, I already did that. And this is just a toString for debugging. Okay, so now we have all this set up. Oh, I should change this. And I still see an error. Oh, yeah, this should be type. Okay, so now we're all good to go, and then So we'll make our first component here, which will be what I guess terrain mesh change. And now now I've got so much stuff open up here. This will want to subscribe to that message and just reset the collider again. This should be UX tag. Terrain should probably be inside map, now that I think about it. But I guess it doesn't make a whole lot of difference. Okay, so now again when this message is called, it will trigger this function which resets the collider. This is a little wasteful. Yeah, I guess since this will be called more than once now, we should probably cache the... That's not how you spell private at all. Cache the mesh collider. And the reason we have to do this is because Unity will not update the mesh collider data unless we set it again. We found that out. Well, even just now when we changed the terrain mesh, the collider did not update to match the new information even though the mesh was changed. So we've got to set it again. Sorry, I think I just hit the mic. Okay, and I'm going to type new there because that just lets Unity know that even though I'm overriding the previous collider variable or field, that's okay, I don't really care because I don't need to access the old one. Okay, so I think that's good. Now I just need to actually claim this message and call it. So that was here. Okay, and then after generating, I can just call onChange. So the only thing I don't like about this is that any other class that also calls generate will need to call this onChange separately. But I think that's better than like having the terrain actually call this message because this is also called during loading and we won't want this to fire then, so I'm okay with it. Hopefully if there's other code paths that actually need to change the terrain, then we'll have to clean things up then. But I think the game is ready to go again, and let's see if the collider mesh updates. So right now, yeah, it's covering all the terrain fine, and when I press 1, this topmost block should disappear. It does, and the collision mesh also updated. Okay, good. So last time we got an error when I moused over here because it was referring to a non-existent block, but not anymore, it's fine. Okay. So I think that's good enough. Like I said, later on we'll have like monster abilities that will actually affect the terrain, and so I don't know, maybe one monster can telepathically move a block somewhere else, so we'd want to like pick this one up here. And that's why I want the terrain to be modifiable during the game instead of just on load time. And now we do support that, however rudimentary, but we're just prepared to keep that code path open, or use case open, I should say. Okay, one other thing I want to do before we move on to colors is I kind of want these monsters to actually be on the terrain floor again. So we'll just take a short detour to the here, the prefab monster loader. Okay, yeah, this is wrong, but this class is not going to be around much longer, so really all we have to do is just move the position down one. So what is this? It's an integer from board to index. Oh, from board index. Okay, I see what's going on. So what we really want to do is just get the position like this, and then we need to move it down, because right now the way we have the elevation set up now is the elevation given by this function, to world, is actually the very top of a block. Before it was the middle of a block. So we just need to move the monsters down a little bit so that their feet are touching that position. So, let's see. Call hex math. That's not how you spell that. So new hex position, still the same column and row, but it'll be one layer down. Okay, and again we'll just set 1, 1 because at some point the value for the radius of a block and the height will need to be... Oops, I put the parentheses in the wrong spot. Will need to be defined by mods, so, but we don't support that just yet. So let's just see if the monsters now are on the terrain instead of floating in the air. I guess the other option is that we could actually raise this terrain up, but I mean, if we want to do that later, it's not a huge problem. Yeah, so now it's looking good. Actually, I'm not sure how the edge of the map should look. Probably we'll need to figure that out. Okay, so took care of that. Okay, so now we're going to get to some fun stuff. I want to give each block a specific color based on its terrain, and then also blend the colors together. But first, let's just not worry about the blending and just set them blocks colors. So first off, I guess we should define the colors in the mod. Where is that? The mods right here. I was looking right at it. Oh, let me get a drink of water, just a second. Okay, thank you. So yeah, I want to open up, I guess, the block prototype, which like defines the information about every kind of block that we can get in the game. Okay, let's clean this up. I want to close all but this. So right now we have a name and a model, but actually blocks don't have models anymore, so we can get rid of that. We'll just have a color. I guess, how do I want to store the color? Probably I can just use a hexadecimal. I might have to get a little helper function to do that. I have written one before. I'm not sure if I imported it to this game engine yet, but we'll see. So we'll have a string. The other option is just to give red, blue, yellow, or red, green, blue values instead of using hexadecimal, but I think hexadecimal is easier just because it's one field. So let's just go with that. Okay, so that's all we have to do here, except now, again, if we load in the game, it's going to give me an error because it's going to try to load the block model when there's not anymore. This mod load manager. Here is where we actually load the block. But now we actually don't load anything with the blocks just yet. Soon every terrain will have textures and stuff, so we'll get back to there soon. Or we'll use this code again soon, I should say. Okay, but then we do it here at the asset organizer, which is where we insert all the data from the various mods into the game database. We will need to have some information about every block color. So here I have the block prototype, and again no model, so I'll just get rid of that right now. We will have, I guess we would have converted it from hexadecimal into a color now. So I can just use Unity's color class. Why did it not give me that? Now, does Unity have a from hex spot? No, it doesn't. Well, we'll worry about that. I guess we actually kind of need to know it now. Let's see. So we go back here. We need to set the logic data color, and then we need the 2 hex, and then we'd have the mod data color. So I need this 2 hex function now. Okay, so let me go grab that real quick. Not sure exactly where I have it, so should be in here. Let's see. I don't think Unity has a built-in from hex function, which is a little weird because in the Unity editor there is actually hexadecimal. I guess I can look that up before I use my own. Convert from hex code to color. Okay, yeah, there's no default, I don't think. Oh yeah, here there is this thing called color utility. Try parse HTML string, attempts to convert HTML color string. Okay, yeah, this will be better. Now is it in the... Yeah, is this color utility actually in the Unity engine, or is it in Unity editor? It looks like... okay, Unity engine, so okay, we can use it. So color utility... try parse HTML string. And what's... okay, I need to give it the out color. Okay, yeah, that's a boolean, so if this fails, then I guess... no, we shouldn't just silently take it, we should throw an error. Okay, so block prototype, we can give the name. Okay, has mad color string, and then the mod data color. Okay, so that should take care of that, and now I think if I load the game it will give me that error right away. Oh, except this, yeah, now this class is basically useless, but I don't want to just delete it in case we need it. So I'll just mark it as obsolete. Oh. Obsolete starts with an O, not a P. And then I'll just comment this code out. So yeah, if we need to use it again for debugging, we can, but I think we're far along with the terrain mesh that we shouldn't need it anymore. Okay, and now yeah, it's obsolete, so I'll just go ahead and delete that. And okay, so let's just play, and I know it's going to give me that an error because it's going to say there was a bad string. Yeah, block prototype dirt has bad color string empty. Okay, so let's go ahead and add it to block prototypes, and we don't need this model tag anymore. Okay, so let's make this, I'll just type brown. I don't know if that's a valid HTML color. We'll see, and then, oh no, let's make this green actually. And then this stone will be gray. Okay, I think, oh right, it probably has to start with an E. Or not start with an E, have an E instead of an A. Okay, it took that. Obviously now it's not colored because we don't do anything. So another thing we need to do is we need to take this terrain mesh and I need to change this albedo to just plain white. Okay, and now we will need to apply a special shader because the default standard shader does not actually use the colors that we're going to send into it. If you watched the 2D lights streams I did a couple weeks ago, we used vertex colors, which basically on our mesh class there's another field that you can store data and send it to a shader called the color field, and it's basically a per vertex color that you can add to the texture, and that's what we'll be using for this, but the default Unity standard shader does not take advantage of that. Luckily it's not that difficult to change. Okay, this is what I was looking for, graphics mesh. So here we'll also need to take care of colors now, but or I guess but nothing, that's what we'll have to do. So we're gonna have to create our first shader for this engine, and I don't have a shader function or a shader folder yet, so I'll add it. That's not how you spell shaders. Well, I guess it is how you spell shaders, but I was about to say I don't want extra characters in it. And we'll create a standard shader. So let's just call this, I guess, terrain. And the interesting about the standard shaders in Unity is that they support like shadows and everything right away. Oh, that's interesting. Does it take color? No, that's a separate color. Okay. Yeah, so as I was saying, the Unity standard shader supports shadows and all of the Unity's nice lighting features, so we definitely want to use the standard shader, and luckily you can still use all of that if you just create a new standard surface shader and then you can add some stuff to it. So let's see, what do I want to call this? Let's tackle lizard tamer and terrain. So we'll want to add in a float for color. Surprised this doesn't have the mnemonic right there. I haven't worked with surface shaders a whole lot, and they work different than the standard unlit shaders that we used a lot in the 2D Lights project, in that this function, as far as I understand it, is taken by Unity, and then from here it generates the vertex and fragment shaders itself, using all the fancy shadows and all the features I just talked about. Okay, so no errors yet, I was just making sure. So what we really need to do is then just multiply the color from the texture. I guess we could do it right here. Yeah, the color from the texture with the color in this input, which the input is all of our vertex data. Okay, and I think that will be good. So now let's look at our material here. I guess this isn't going to be much of a test. This will actually be our terrain mesh material. So we have no texture right now. That will probably cause a problem. So let's just oh, I was hoping that it would just have a plain white texture, but it doesn't look like it. Well, I guess we can set that up ourselves. Let's create a new empty artist pure white sprite. Where do I want to put this? I'll just leave it in the assets folder. I'm actually surprised that Unity doesn't have a default pure white sprite. Well, this might not really be needed actually, because I think if you don't supply a texture, it defaults to all white. I wonder. That's probably why they don't have one. Yeah, so it still works fine. Okay, so I did that for no reason, but no problem. I'll just leave that around in case we need it. We'll actually be modifying this shader later to just not even have that texture input, but okay, so now we're all ready to actually add some color to the graphic, or not graphic, mesh. So we'll want, for every vertex, we'll need to also have a corresponding color, and it'll be pretty easy because since every triangle has its own vertex, we don't have to worry about like sharing vertices. So really here, when we just add triangle, we'll also just pass a color. That's probably the best thing to do. Oh, I already have C, so let's just type it out. Okay, and we'll need another list here for the colors. That's not the right way to do it. So, colors, add color, and we'll just need to add this 3 times. One for each vertex we just added. Later on, the corners of the colors might be different, but not for now. so here, let's just test it out and let's just pass blue and see if things look a little different. And why don't we have the cliffs be red? These can be yellow actually. Well, a nice little pattern. So now we can test out if the shader displays the colors correctly. Okay. Oh, I didn't. Two things. I didn't create the color list, and I don't insert the colors into the mesh yet. Oops, come on. Do I clear each of these lists anywhere? It should be cleared right here, I guess. Surprised that didn't cause any problems when we were regenerating the mesh before. Because it was basically storing all that information twice, but I guess I was lucky. Oh, actually no, it's because that class is just discarded and recreated later on, but it's fine. Okay, so now we've got some crazy looking colors, but everything's looking good. So the flat parts are blue and then the cliffs are red and yellow. So this makes it a little easier to see, so it's kind of a nice feature for now. And we can see since we're using a standard shader, we still got the shadows. Alright, so what's next? I guess we need to pass the terrain colors into the cell information. So on the blueprint, so right now it just has elevation, and we'll just add a color field. This won't really... Well, we're just going super simple right now, but that's actually interesting. I'm thinking like, again, let's show... Come on, you can do it. Right, there we go. So like right here, it's conceivable that this block is different than this one, and so when we move down here, we'd actually want there to be this triangle to be cut here, and then for there to be a different color on this cliff face. But we actually won't store this color because the cell only stores information. Well, I guess the cell is supposed to be like a whole, I don't know the right term, but a tube for a specific row and column. So I guess we'd actually need like a list of colors if we want to go through it this way, but yeah, we'll just have to see what the best way to store that information will actually be. But for now, we'll just have the simple color, and it'll just be based on the topmost block. Yeah, thinking about that, using this separate blueprint cell might be a little bit more trouble than it's worth, and maybe everything should just look into the game data itself. I don't know. Let's see. Anyways, I need to go to the blueprint generator. Okay, so here when we set the elevation, we'll actually need to get the layer beforehand. Oops. Yeah, so another way, instead of just like storing all this in like an intermediate data class, I mean we already have this surface class that returns us this data, so maybe like you could just rely on it to give us, or like other classes like that to oh, what's the word, I guess, carry code that's in common between the graphics and the collision mesh generator, so they won't have to rely on this intermediate data. But I guess let's just, I'm probably thinking too far ahead. Let's get one step at a time. So, okay, now that we have the layer, okay, do I have the game data? No. And the more I think, yeah, I don't want to spend too much on this blueprint builder because the more I think about it, I think it's going to be more trouble than it's worth having it. But just for now. Okay, this is going to be a monster indexing right there. So let's get the block prototype here. This will be board, map, X position, column, row, layer. Come on, to board index. Okay, so now that's the block prototype, and now we can just index right here and get the color out. Okay, so I think now we'll get the actual colors. Oh, well, no, we won't yet. Don't actually read from it. Okay, we'll just, again, get the colors. Let's see here. Alright, I need to pass the database. Happy now, Unity? Oh, it's thinking. Okay, object not set to a reference. So, what would be the problem here? Either database is null, the block prototype is null, or the actual block prototype and the array is null, and either and any of those options sounds a little weird to me. ID. Alright, so I guess now we'll be able to see exactly what is null. Let's try and mesh. I guess there's no way the database could be null because it's set up right here. I guess I shouldn't say no way, but just tried to play it too soon. It's a little slow to compile tonight, I don't know why. Okay, so on line 33, let's see what that one is. Okay, so yeah, either the database is null or the list. Neither one makes a lot of sense, but I would guess it's a database. Oh, of course, because I don't store the object reference. Okay, that's a silly mistake. Okay, there we go. And now everything is a nice shade of green. Because it's everything right now is dirt. So let's change that up a bit. Map generation. So I'll have the bottom layer be stone, and let's just see how that looks. Okay, so now the bottom layer is gray. So finally we're actually getting some map generation, although right now it doesn't look much better than what we had before. But we're getting there. Okay, and just to illustrate the problem I was talking about, we'll have that be stone, and then let's just do this one. So yeah, okay, so we have one stone here, and then right here, this block should be stone, but it's showing up as dirt because the mesh generator only cares, or right now it only takes into account the top block. But even if we wanted to, okay, so we need to get away the collision mesh. If we're just looking at the visible mesh, oh, it's clipping because too close. You can see these triangles go all the way down in the clip face, so we're actually going to need to stop in the middle, kind of like we did for the collider mesh. And we can probably actually just bring over that code for now. I guess let's get that working. Although, yeah, I'm really not feeling this blueprint anymore. Because let's take, for instance, say we had an even taller column, we need to have like a list of colors. And like for each layer, but then like what's the order of the list? And what if we have to store more information besides just colors down the line, which wouldn't surprise me. I can already think of some things that I want to do down the line that will take into account all of that information, so it's going to be a big decision just to delete it. Okay, let's look. What would it take to convert this to not use the blueprints? Got rid of that. And this. So it needs the cells, but yeah, we won't use that. It just needs an index, so we can basically just loop through every row and column. Still have the storage, which isn't actually needed for the graphics mesh anymore. So right now the only thing that it uses the blueprint for is the row size, which it can get from the board class. And then this radius and step, which it should get from the game data. And then of course the elevation, which it can get from that surface class that we already have. Alright, so yeah, thinking we'll go with this. I won't delete the blueprint generator in case we need it later, but okay, so that means we'll need to pass a bunch more objects here. Let me see here. So one thing we want for sure is that the surface class, and in the future I'll probably have, well, I don't really know if it matters, but we could have this get layer be cached so that I won't have to look this up multiple times for the same cell. But, and if we did that, I'd want to share it with the collision mesh. And I'm sure there would be some other little helper objects like that. So do I want to have like a long list of things we pass in? I don't think that's would be a good idea. Could just have like a container class that would contain like the mesh and the database and everything. That seems a little messy. Let's just take it one step at a time, I guess. So we'll have the mesh, and then we'll need to have the board for sure. And the game data. And then we'll want the surface. Anyway, we don't need this cell verts in the graphics mesh generator, so let's get rid of that. Because that was to keep track of neighboring vertices, but we don't. I was mostly just keeping that code there because I knew we'd need it in the collider mesh generator. Okay, so let's see. So there's one cell for every row and column, and that's basically the layer size, so we can just use that. There's none of this yet. A blueprint, and we can get the row size again from the board. And the number of rows is the layer size divided by the row size. Which, why do I calculate this actually? Does anything use it? Okay, it's down here. Okay, so the elevation will need a surface. Okay, so the radius and height step I don't store anywhere. I guess I should take care of that now before I use any other, or I use any different variables, and I'll have to go track everything down later. So one option is I could just have something like float here, but I think there should be maybe another class, or maybe we could just store that in the board actually. So yeah, this would be the hex radius and hexagon height, and that will be modifiable by the mods, so that's why we want to have that information in here. I need to remember to initialize these values somewhere, because right now they're going to be both 0. Okay, so the color, okay, let's just go, I guess I'll need a helper function for that. So we'll want to get the prototype. We can basically use that code that I created earlier in the blueprint generator. Although I don't really need to copy and paste it, it's pretty simple. Oh, and I do actually turn something. So row, column, layer, and then we return database, block prototypes, board, map. Okay, so all this does is just convert this hex position to a board index, and then we index the map, which gives us the block type, and then we index the block prototypes list to get that. It's a bit of a mouthful though. Yeah, that looks a lot better. Okay, so now I can just call get prototype for the column row. And I don't know the... I guess, yeah I do, this is my position. Let's go like that, probably. Okay, and then down here it's just indexing stuff. Yes, this is a board. Okay, so now we can actually pass the board. I think about it. Okay, we had to do that slightly hacky thing because we didn't have access to the board before. And yeah, I should rename this to board because the field was the old naming convention we used till I realized it didn't make much sense. Okay, and I can also change this to use the board as well. I guess I could really just call is valid on board with the layer is equal to 0, but I think this is a little bit faster. And I'm gonna just make it easier for me to see. I'll put that in parentheses, although it's not really needed. And we don't need that anymore. We do need to get the elevation for the neighbor. And for that I just call surface, get layer for the neighbor column and neighbor row. If that's less than my position layer. Okay, so board. So I actually need to get the elevation twice more. Should I assume that the surface caches these values? That way I wouldn't have to store this somewhere else. I don't know. Doesn't really make much difference at this point. Okay, and then the height step we can get from the board, except I call it hex height now. Which actually makes it a little bit, it's a little confusing. Because you could think it's maybe, I don't know, the vertical length of a hexagon. Let's call it not hex, let's call it layer height. What's it? Oh, I don't know what that error is about. Okay, and then the color, we just need to all this again. I guess I should just store the color since we're using it like this. Oops, I accidentally took the parentheses with me. I can just take away that. And we're done. I'm gonna get rid of all this commented code because we're not going to need it. Okay, so now I think it will be just as easy to convert the collision generator and not use the blueprint as it was to do this. And this will also need a board. I don't know if it'll need the game database actually. We'll need the surface. And this is again just board layer size. Block elevation or block index. I don't have to even be hacky about that anymore. So let's do int layer. Here is surface, get layer, column row. And now we can just call x position, column, row, layer to board index. So now we don't have to have that math separate. Okay, so now we're generating cliffs. Be nice to, I don't know, make this code a little bit cleaner so that it doesn't have to know these offsets itself, but this will be okay. Let's change that. Okay, this is just getting the surface. Yeah, so this is the reason why the surface needs to cache these values, because we're going to be calling that a lot in this collider, I think. And then this is the layer height. Still, I don't know, that name is still not the best. That could be a little confusing with layer size, but okay, now we don't need this anymore. Just need to get the elevation. So this is gonna get pretty messy, especially since actually the surface, in order to get elevation, needs row and column and not just index. We should make a helper function for that. And we'll basically just move back here, I think. Well, actually, the index is almost the more native version, because we convert the cell to the column and row, or we convert column and row into the cell, I should say. I should change this to cell index as opposed to block index. And the difference again there is that the block index cares about what layer it's on. Okay, so yeah, this is actually the more native version, so let's rename this. And yeah, we can take that out. And then this get layer would just return get layer with this. Alright, so we're all good. Do I want to just do caching already? I think so. Okay, so the surface. This will actually be an array. I don't know, let's not call it that, let's just call it the cache. And we'll know the length of it because it's just the layer size. And then here, I guess we should initialize it to -1. And then down here, if cache is greater than -1, the cell index is greater than equal to 0, we'll do it that way. And then we can just return what's in the cache. Instead of returning, I should store this. Now I need to type break here instead of returning. And then cache cell index equals layer, and then we'll return that. Okay, so now we'll always only call this once. So that means I don't need to worry about storing this. Storing the returns, I should say. I think I'll still store it here because we're gonna use both values very quickly. So my elevation will return my index, and then it's neighbor elevation. I should just, instead of calling this elevation, it should be layer. And then if just need to put the layers in here. We don't need those cells anymore. That was probably just to get the elevation, so we'll need to calculate this again, but again, since it's cached, it doesn't make any difference. So this will be the lower layer and the higher layer. So how do you spell higher? Excuse me. Sorry, my throat. Let's see. Just gonna go through and copy all this. Okay, I guess that was the last one. And instead of E, okay, since we're going with layer instead of elevation, I'll just use L instead. And this is just the board. And this is, you don't have to use that anymore, I could just call X position. Oh no, I already know the index actually. Well, there's not a good way to... Yeah, all I'm just like transforming one index and moving it around based on the layer, so I'll just leave that how it was. This should change to the layer size. And then this changes to the layer height. Okay, there's still more. Okay, and then my elevation is again from the surface. I can just rename that, I think, for all this. And more elevation stuff, so surface get layer, other index. Okay. So now this is all good to go, and the last thing I need to do is make... I think I'll just make these in the accessors, so that way I don't have to pass everything in the constructor. And maybe hide this in a region. Is it gonna... forget if there's an easy way to do that. I'll worry about that later. And then I'll do the same thing here. It still needs a surface. And then on the terrain mesh itself, okay, so we won't do the blueprints at all. We'll just pass those fields here. So this is the graphics mesh, and the board is the board and database. And then I think I have the surface, or I did something else create it, I forget. I'll just make my own up here. And I'll do the same thing here. If you've never seen this notation, it's just an easy way to set a lot of variables right when you create an object. It's pretty nice. This doesn't need a database. And we're done. Okay, so that should be all I have to do to update all those classes to use the new data, or basically just to rely on themselves instead of that intermediate blueprint, which I think in the long run will be better. Okay, something wrong. User provided triangle mesh descriptor is invalid. That tells me that maybe the collision mesh is bad. Let's see. It has vertices. But I don't see anything. Okay, so something is messed up. What did I change that could have done that? Okay, well let's just not do the collision mesh for now. And we can just try to fix the... oh, I've got to point that out. Fix the display mesh first. That way we won't get that physX error. Okay, yeah, definitely nothing there. But the train graphics... 500 vertices? Yeah, that doesn't sound right. Although maybe it is, I don't know. And of course that's 0. So it was working just a second ago. I'm trying to think about what I did that could have... oh! I said this was going to be a problem. The hex radius and the layer height are both 0 right now. So let's just go to the asset organizer here and loading. And let's just throw it in. How do I do the block prototypes? So we've got the database. Oh no. Yeah, the board. Yeah, we're gonna have to do that a little different actually now that I think about it, because the board shouldn't hold that information, because the board is like the current state of the game map, whereas this won't change. This is like loaded from mods. So okay, I guess I will have another class here. Let's call it, I don't know, board metrics. That's not how you spell it. That's slightly annoying because I just set all this up, but I wonder, I don't know. I mean, technically this row size and layer size doesn't change, but the board already has this map, and it kind of needs this row size and layer size to be able to make any sense of it, so I'll just leave that in there. Because again, the board is stored in the battle, which is like the current state of the game, and is saved in the save file, whereas everything else is loaded from mods, so it really shouldn't be saved in the save file. So that's the main difference. I want to try to keep that data separated. So again, that's not going to be there. And then here, game data. Let's create another class here. This will be the board metrics. I don't really know if this will ever end up holding any more information than what it has, but it might. Okay, so now in the asset organizer, so now I can set the metrics here. Should I should probably just go ahead and load this directly from the mods instead of like just putting in a band-aid fix, but okay, so how do I want to do that? I guess it should really just be in the table of contents, shouldn't it? Oh, where should it be? So let's call this block hex radius and block hex or block layer height. And so obviously only the main mod should be able to have this information, or should control this information. So where is that? That's the framework mod. Table of contents. Okay, and I guess I should throw an error if this is like negative or 0. Throw new. Okay, we're kind of like separating this block prototype code. So let's move this somewhere else. Here we do kind of global things, so this is like functions. Here, this will be a good place. Okay, so this should be block hex radius must be greater than 0. and block layer height must be greater than 0. Okay, so let's just go ahead and run the game. Oh, lots of problems. Oh right, because I moved all that stuff out of the board. Okay, so now this will need the game data just to get that metrics class. I can just change every reference to the board to the database metrics. And the graphics mesh generator already has a database, so I don't need to create another field for that. Okay, that's it. And then in terrain mesh, I need to set the database here and the collision generator, which I haven't created the accessor yet. Okay, so now it should be good. And I want to run the game once just to test if that error works, which I don't know why it wouldn't, but... yeah, because it's saying block hex radius must be greater than 0. Okay, so that's good. And now I need to go into the testing or the framework mods table of contents and add those two values. So this is the block hex radius, and we'll just set it to 1. Block our layer height. And we're good to go. Okay, so now everything still works, and we're ready to do a bit more work. Let's see if it works if I change these values around. So let's change this to 1.5 and the height to, I don't know, 0.66, 2/3. Everything still works, but I know, yeah, this is in the wrong position now because the blocks are bigger. And our monster, everything that calls a to-world function is actually calling the wrong, or using the wrong metrics now. So let's go ahead and update that because, yeah, we're almost out of time, so I don't really have time to work on splitting that cliff yet. So let's just clean up this code real quick. I'll go ahead and delete this. And we'll just fix up. Okay, the indicator still used it. But now we just change this to hex math. I just want to get. Oh, well, this is. Hex math to world. Hex math is. Yeah, it'd be nice if it could go ahead and get this information itself, but since it's a static class, I guess we could just give it the metrics class. That might be useful. So we got board metrics. Layer height. And I guess I'll do the same thing down here. Why not? Might as well stay consistent. That's actually the. What is it? Can I convert from float Oh, I see. I messed that up. Okay, so now there's going to be a bunch of errors because we changed toWorld to use the metrics class instead of passing in these numbers directly. Oh, this class doesn't have a reference to the database already. That's not too hard to fix, but it's a little annoying. Speaking about that, I haven't really thought how I want these indicators to look in the new system. It'd be nice if we could like paint a texture onto the actual terrain, which we can do. Oh yeah, there's a lot. This should already have the database because it has to get the model, so yeah, that's nice. And then yeah, the terrain generator. So now we can just pass the metrics itself. It actually makes things easier, but we have to go and fix everything up. And probably the graphics generator also has this problem. Okay, that's it, I think. Any other classes? I already fixed those, Unity. Okay, yeah, so now everything works still, and the monsters are in the right positions. If I click here, the indicators are sort of in the right position. Alright, cool. So, yeah, I think that's about it that we'll get to do tonight, but let's just plan ahead. Okay, so we're still working on this. We've got colors down, but there's no blending. But I think first I need to cut cliffs for each block, and the graphics mesh, kind of what we did, and the collider a while ago. Mostly so that we can color them differently. And then we're going to need to work on blending, which will be pretty fun. The gist of it is that these corners need to actually be, well, there's a couple ways you can do it. They kind of need to like average between the different colors of each hexagon, but we'll find out that that one actually looked very good. So what we're going to need to do is basically make a ring of more vertices. Oh, let's bring up the wireframe over here. So we'll need to make a ring around here and also a ring around here, and it'll stay a solid color where the terrain is the same, but then where the different terrains meet, it will just blend colors in between there, and it will look a lot smoother. Still probably won't look the best because we're just working with flat colors right now, but it'll be a step up. And we still have a lot more to do, but making some good progress. But yeah, I think that's going to be it for me for tonight. So again, or not again, but thanks everybody for coming by and watching. I do appreciate it. If you did miss any of this stream or any previous one and you'd like to catch up, I do put all of my streams onto YouTube. You can get there from my channel description or typing !YouTube in chat. I also have a Discord channel if you'd like to chat with me and other viewers. We'd really love to have you there. It's !Discord in chat to get an invite, or you can also look in my channel or video description. And of course, feel free to follow me here on Twitch, and you'll get a notification when I go live tomorrow, which should be around 8:30 Eastern. And we'll continue working on this. Hopefully we'll get to creating those different, or those other triangle rings here for blending. And this should be looking a lot nicer in the next coming days. But yeah, I hope you all have a great night, and I'll see you tomorrow. Alright, bye bye.